This is Uncharted, a series of candid conversations about facing uncertainty. When we are called upon to be courageous, the strength of our leadership is tested. Red Direction has developed the Fast Track Your Business program to help you stay aligned to your business's true north. Jess Dewell is your guide. Jess brings you a 20-year track record of business excellence where strategy and operations overlap. Your path comes from consistently working from this special place, your unique true north. Now, here's Jess.
All right, everybody, welcome to Uncharted. This is the Bold Business Podcast, and I'm talking with Michael Silverman today. You know, he is the CEO of Flipp, a planning and savings app that helps shoppers provide for their families by making life more affordable. And we all can have tips and tricks like that. But here's the thing. Yeah, we're going to hear about his app. We're going to hear about his life as a CEO, because as a career entrepreneur and operator, he's got experiences across investment banking, startups, consumer technology. And, you know, more and more technology is integrating into every part of business, every part of the way we do things. And if we're not there yet, which I know everybody listening is, it seems to be changing so fast. And I have to say, even though it's changing and it's changing fast, we have a lot to learn, not only from this proud New Yorker, not only from this amazing husband, not only from a new father, but to be able to share his experience and wisdom with us today. Hi, Michael, and welcome.
Hi, Jess. Thank you so much for having me.
Heck yeah. Well, so I know we were talking about a lot of things in the last couple of conversations that we've had. And one of the things that kept showing up for you was, and me, and we can both relate to this, is all about uncertainty. This concept that no matter where we go, stuff happens. And I know everybody's still talking about COVID, and we're going to do that a little bit too. I just think it kind of makes this exclamation point of what uncertainty in business actually brings.
Yeah, absolutely. So COVID is the obvious example in the last, 24 months of operating a business. But uncertainty pops up day in, day out in running a business. And so you have to be prepared as a leader to manage.
And, you know, when we're thinking about uncertainty, and I know we can all relate now because we have this common experience of COVID. Is there a time before COVID that you went, I can't believe I got here and I'm not sure if I know how to get out?
Yeah, I mean, I can, that feels like a daily occurrence.
Right? Oh, good. I'm glad I'm not alone.
No, certainly not. I would say a big part of making decisions as a leader is about, consuming data and analyzing to the best of your abilities, but ultimately, especially in consumer tech, there's an enormous amount you won't know going forward in operating a business. And so you have to make your best educated guess. And so on a daily basis, you are faced with decisions that require that you be comfortable with uncertainty in order to make those decisions. And that's about establishing confidence, not about establishing surety.
Ooh, yeah. Assured is great. Do you feel assured once you have that confidence? Do you need the first one before the other?
Yeah, I mean, so I work with a business partner today who's one of the founders of Flipp, who is somebody I admire greatly because he's like the ultimate startup guy. He can cut through some data and build a narrative and a thesis and be 1,000% sure he's right in a very short period of time. And I think sometimes I still, get into the trouble of analysis paralysis because I'm looking for greater confidence. But having that skill set, having the ability to establish that thesis and then be convinced of its validity is an important skill to have in order to lead successfully. Because if you don't have that confidence, it's very hard to instill it in others.
It's true. And I know, there are a lot of things that are coming to my mind. I remember there were a couple of companies that I ran. My first one, which was e-commerce. I know we talked a little bit about having roots there and connections there, but also I really felt like I was making it up as I went along. I'll be real with you. I mean, was there a thesis? Sure. Did we have a mission? Yeah. But how things showed up, I was like, well, is it really that bad if it doesn't work?
Yeah, you have to be comfortable with a lot of that. So I ran, before Flipp, my biggest venture was a business called Fancy.com. And Fancy was a multi-sided marketplace. And what we did was we We were essentially social commerce before, about 10 years before social commerce existed.
Right.
And we were some combination of Etsy meets Pinterest. And so we would crowd curate a collection of cool stuff, and then we would work with the merchants to make it available on our marketplace. And I think that business, if any, was a really great example of just how fickle consumers are. And because consumer trends are fads that come in one day and are gone the next, it's the ultimate category of uncertainty. And so in e-commerce, where you're operating, either you're building a product line or you're operating a platform or you're solving logistics and you don't know what the market conditions are going to be, you have to be prepared to think on your toes. And that's part of being comfortable with uncertainty, which is having confidence in your own skills. But it's also like, if you believe long-term in what you are doing, it will give you the confidence to operate successfully.
Yes. Okay. So, and I know, okay, how do you get into that belief and fuel it and still be able to hear other data that might not match your belief? Or, you know what I mean? Because there's that concept of, well, I've got to believe in it no matter what anybody else says, but I also need to be able to adapt and grow it so that I can stay relevant and actually get there.
Another great question. So confidence can fuel a project forward, but ultimately to be a great operator, and this is actually speaking not just as an operator or a career operator, but also as somebody who's worked a great deal in marketing, which also requires an enormous amount of like ingesting data on the fly in order to pivot your strategy. You have to be prepared for that as well, which is if some sort of large piece of information or data subsequently comes back and influences your original thesis, you have to also be comfortable stepping away from that confidence and having a short memory and being ready to reestablish a new thesis and pivot. And that's like, listen, being an operator, being an entrepreneur is an emotional roller coaster. Day in, day out, it is absolutely exhausting. You go from the highest highs to the lowest lows in very short periods of time. But being somebody who can withstand that sort of swing, I think often self-selects for the same person who's capable of establishing great confidence in something, moving forward on it, learning something new, and changing the thesis to establish new confidence in something different in a short period of time.
I really like that you're using the phrase, establish the thesis, change the thesis. It's all about that. When did you find that became a core foundation of being able to find success in business?
So my first venture was in fancy was, everyone is an emotional roller coaster, but like it was all over the map. We were reinventing the wheel day in, day out. There was an internal thesis, which in retrospect was a terrible one, was that everything had to be homegrown. And so, I partnered with two technologists, incredibly smart, wonderkind-esque brothers in New York who are very, very talented technologists and product people, and quite frankly, product visionaries. And one of the challenges in working with them, though, in all fairness, was that they wanted to build everything. And in retrospect, I think we could have been better at finding something off the shelf or finding somebody else who did something better in order to generate greater multiplying effects inside of our business. But in the process of doing that, in the process of reinventing the wheel every single day, that's where I really learned to get comfortable with that kind of ambiguity and that ability to ingest information, establish confidence, move forward, learn new information, either leave a project that you 2 weeks earlier were 100% sure would change the face of your business, or alter the project in a different direction, because we did that. I don't know. I can't even think of how many businesses we started in that business. I mean, we ran a subscription box business inside of that business. We ran a multi-site marketplace. So we were both doing BD and selling into partners, as well as trying to establish large partnerships with other e-commerce businesses, as well as running a logistics business in the background. We were the largest merchant of record on our own platform, doing tens of millions of dollars in a $50+ million, GMV business. So like, we were doing a lot of things at once, while I was also running HR, while I was also running customer service, while we were also building some of our own customer service tools. We actually built our own payment processing pieces at one point. So we did a lot of businesses, and like shifting around all of that, you really learn to, it's trial by fire. You learn to get good at it by, screwing it up.
Right. And okay, so now I have another question. You did all those things within that one umbrella. Were some of the things that you listed happening at the same time? Were they all happening at the same time? Did you leave some behind to go, ooh, I'm glad we tried this because it's getting us there, and it illuminated that path forward to the scale and the growth that you experienced?
Yeah, so you're touching actually on another great learning from that experience. I had so many, but one was focus, which we did not do well. So I think one thing I learned after leaving Fancy to go and do a bunch of other work was that it's more important in building a business to be exceptional at one thing than it is to be great at or good at a bunch of things, because being a mile wide and an inch deep on work can kill you. And quite frankly, at Flipp, since I've taken over, running the business, it's been something that we've honed in on like tenfold, which is we are a B2B2C business. So not only are we helping shoppers save on their weekly grocery shopping or their regular shopping activities and helping them live life more affordably, but we are also doing that in partnership with retailers and CPGs and helping them tell savings narratives to the shoppers in order to entice them to engage. And so there's a lot of moving pieces in our business, and it's very easy in such a complicated flywheel to want to do everything at the same time. And we have operated an off-app native advertising network while also running our owned and operated assets, while also running SaaS that is enterprise-grade SaaS that sits on their websites. So in the last year, one of actually the silver linings of COVID was that we had a chance to re-strategize and really refocus. And the strategy exercise was, I think, great for centering the team and the leadership, but ultimately landed in a very similar place to where we had been before in terms of what we decided were priorities. I think this was just the first time we actually subsequently prioritized things and then turned off certain things. So there was a bunch of tactical work we were doing that we just shut off.
You're listening to the Bold Business Podcast, Uncharted. Now back to the program.
So it sounded like you were taking action and the priorities kept showing up. Were they the ones that you thought they were, or were they different from what you were expecting and what you had decided originally?
I think they are what we thought they were. It's the ultimate example here is that we service a shopper and we service retailers and CPGs. And so part of our business is about satisfying a use case for the shopper, which is helping them live life more affordably by connecting them with local savings and deal content in order to be efficient in finding the best place to shop for the respective week or for their respective mission. And that is a very shopper-centric goal. And there are decisions you can make that are shopper-centric that could very easily sacrifice revenue opportunities. Mm-hmm. But we are a big business doing lots of revenue with serious investors. And I think, no one likes the idea of us sacrificing revenue opportunities in order to do work. But we've decided that our priority is shoppers. And so that has meant that there are certain things that we do for the retailers and the CPGs that were a distraction that we have stopped doing. And that's no surprise. I think if you, from the outside in, looked at Flipp, you'd say, oh, this is a shopper-focused business. And that would be the right assumption. And I think if you were even to just join Flipp, you would say, oh, we focus on making shoppers' lives better. But then ultimately, you would look at some of the actions we were taking. You'd wonder, well, why are we doing that? Why are we boosting results of some of our paid partners in our search results? Is that something that benefits the shopper? No. But do we drive revenue off of it? Yes. But ultimately, we decided not to do stuff like that because we wanted to ensure that the shopper has the best experience when they search for products.
How did it impact your growth when you did that?
Honestly, de minimis.
Right?
I think it's one of those things where it's like the decision gets shaped in fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And then ultimately, you cut through the data, you ask yourself the hard question, and you make you take decisive action in order to just do the right thing, aligned with the original focus, which is making the shopper experience better. And it was the right decision. And quite frankly, you actually, interestingly, I don't believe he was unique in coming up with this, but that came from our head of sales. Our head of sales sort of said, like, hey, listen, we have a shopper experience, and my job is to sell in as much stuff as possible, but like, I don't think we're helping ourselves out here. I need more shoppers, not more revenue opportunities. And so he's like, I'm happy to sacrifice that revenue if it means that we then generate a better shopper experience and then more shoppers come and retain more.
I love that the idea came from somebody else in the organization.
Yeah.
I think that that's huge. And to be able to look at it. So okay, so that comes to you and it's, hey, this is what I'm supposed to be selling, even though I've got this other stuff over here. I think what's going on? I'm feeling this disconnect. And you listened and your team listened. What made it something you would listen to? Was it because it was that idea? Was it because you were already on this path of focusing? Was it a way that it was presented?
I don't think I can distill this down to one thing.
I love it.
But I do think there are many reasons why we listened. One is we're an engineering heavy organization. So if the data points anywhere, we usually follow the data. Again, like going back to the concept of being comfortable with ambiguity, I don't think we need 100% data assurance in order to move forward, but if data points in some direction, we try to analyze it and we try to follow it.
Yep.
I'd say the second thing is actually something that we've talked about and that you had asked me about, which is leadership styles and like what is successful in being a leader during times of uncertainty. Transparency is super important. And so we had something that wasn't going right. And I think it was important for us to be honest with ourselves about that. And then be honest with the team broadly, not just the leadership, not just management, not just me, not just the board, but be broadly honest, painfully honest about something we did and messed up and needed to do better. And I think that the last piece of this is that we tried to build what we call like a guiding coalition. So this wasn't Mike Silverman or our head of product or head of sales making a decision and everyone following. It was not top-down leadership. We're very big internally at Flipp, focusing on bottom-up support rather. So like we run what's called an inverted pyramid and servant leadership. And so like I have so many people who work at the organization. We're 400 people who work at the organization full-time, and we hire crazy smart people. I'd be doing us a disservice if we didn't rely on those IQ points to make decisions. And so what we did was we got a guiding coalition together to refocus our strategy, to form some level of consensus to work forward. And it's not always painfully democratic. I know how wildly inefficient the bureaucracy of that can be, but the idea was like, we wanted buy-in. We wanted everybody to be like excited about what we were doing. And then we build a whole process around it. And subsequently, we run something called the strategic initiatives. And our strategic initiatives, this all falls into the Playing to Win framework, which is one of the books that I read. And we
Which book is it? Wait, say it again. I want to make sure I've got it. Which book?
It's called Playing to Win. It's a strategic framework that P&G, and we leverage that. And so in the strategic initiatives that we run, we review the progress of the strategic initiatives every 6 weeks. And we leverage data to tell us if we're on the right track or the wrong track. And then we resource the strategic initiatives, effectively. And then we make decisions about whether or not we're going to take strategic initiatives off the table. So when we first focused during COVID, we landed on 11 things we wanted to do. Okay. And then before we got going out, we narrowed that down to 7 things. And then we kicked it off and we got all the way down to 4 things. And now we are deeply focused on 3 strategic initiatives. Mm-hmm. That was process of elimination. I mean, we got there by, digging in, learning more, seeing what was successful, and then we resourced behind the things that were working. And we still have, so much room to grow and get better, and we could do this a million times better than we do it today. But that process of transparency, including the team in a decision-making framework, leveraging a framework in order to make decisions and following data, those are all sort of the ways that we think about making those kinds of decisions.
I think it's interesting because And it sounds like you've been data driven the whole way through. And it sounds like if you're doing something on 6 week intervals, that there is now a pattern with which you get to rely on, and your teams and your people all understand that things are happening in this particular kind of cadence. How long did it take you to recognize, did you start with this type of a 6 week interval for your strategic initiatives, or did you fall into it? Did you find it? And what was it like before?
I love Flipp. I love being a member of Flipp. And before I was the CEO of Flipp, I was the chief consumer officer of Flipp. So I had the experience of being a management team member before management team leader. And Flipp has gone through many iterations of how to structure the strategy of the business, and then effectively the KPIs to measure success. And we went through so many iterations, not because anyone was bad at it, but because ultimately I think we struggled to find the discipline to stick to something. And I wouldn't pretend for a second that what we've landed on is perfect. It's imperfect. It is imperfect in so many ways. But I think that being good at something like this requires choosing a path forward and sticking to it for some period of time to get better at it, and then ultimately decide over a much longer time horizon whether or not this is the right thing that works for you, at the sacrifice of potentially being wrong. But we're not, and we haven't reinvented the wheel here, and we have leveraged the playing to win framework, which is a trusted framework that other companies can use in order to be successful. And we leverage a framework for measuring our success called OGSM, which is Objectives, Goals, Strategies, Measures. And this combination has worked out well. The cadence, we're still figuring it out. Like, there are things we could do more often and things we could do less often. Like a perfect example is doing a whole structure like this, a whole strategic process it creates so many meetings. We have way too many meetings.
Okay.
There's like a meeting every 10 seconds at our company. Yeah. And we've really struggled with implementing more control in order to be better at reviewing our data and constantly be reviewing our decisions, while also providing people the space and time to have the autonomy to do their work successfully. And that's a tough balance to manage. And I think I reference another book, the Netflix book, the Reed Hastings book. I don't have the name of it right here. I'll forget the name.
What's it about? Maybe we can figure it out together.
It's his like professional assessment retrospective on his how Netflix became Netflix.
Okay.
The name will come to me eventually.
Sure, that's fine. I like books. That's really cool.
But that book was a great book for me because it clarified one very particular topic, which is the distinction between control leadership and context leadership.
Yes.
And what your objective is either you're looking for confidence that you are going to manage risk, which is control leadership, or confidence that you're going to generate innovation, which is context leadership. And you're always best choosing one over the other, but we're in a very tough position where I think often we need to find a way in some circumstances to leverage context, in some circumstances to leverage control. And so this is an example where we've implemented control in order to establish the right learned behavior. But ultimately, my goal is strategically to pull back on this so as to give high context leaders the autonomy to go and operate successfully. I think that was a very roundabout answer.
No, it's actually really good because you said something that I really appreciate, which is we could always do it better. And then you're talking about this control leadership of mitigating risk. Well, isn't that what that always is? And then at the other side, you were saying, and so it generates things we don't like, but we actually get really good results, which is also the innovation piece. So isn't that like the dance of being human and working together as a team?
Yeah, it's just very rarely, I don't know what percentage of the population indulges themselves in therapy, but operating a business is like you're constantly operating, you're having therapy appointments to say, oh, what did we do right? What did we do wrong? What could we do differently? Why did we get here? How did we get here? Yeah. What can we, do in the future to avoid coming back here? And so it's like daily therapy being in a company. And I'm somebody who loves therapy, and I've been in therapy at many points in my life because I very much the intellectual exercise of like talking to somebody about my feelings. and my background. But yeah, so I think your point is astute. It's operating a business is like a grand reflection of being an imperfect human, and being fallible in many ways, and learning from your mistakes and trying to alter your future as a result of your learnings. And it's tough. It's tough to be introspective and honest with yourself
as an individual, and then to turn around and do that layer after layer when you get to every other person in your organization that you've hired. And I'm not going to get the words exactly right, but you hired smart people and now you want to serve them and get out of their way. And sometimes those people don't get along, and sometimes they do. And amazing things happen, even if it takes too long. I was asking the question because ultimately, roundaboutly, I wanted to talk to you about time.
Yeah. So you got there. And by the way,
isn't it great? It was good conversation.
Yeah. Everything you said just there at the end, summarizing my ramblings, was like really dead on. Like there's a lot of managing people, personalities, experiences, efficiency in order to get to a result. And it is very much an extension of the human condition.
Yeah. Okay. I'm telling you, everybody, listen to Mike. This is Mike Silverman, CEO of Flipp. And for those of you who are part of our Fast Track Your Business program, there's going to be more to come. For the rest of you, I'm so glad you enjoyed this conversation. And if you want to find out a little bit more about what we're doing over there, visit fasttrackyourbusinesstoday.com. And regardless, take away the things that Mike has shared today and see what you can use from his experience to help you figure out, focus in on. I'm going to use there's all kinds of, you should see these notes that I wrote down. Make sure that you're focusing on one thing and have the discipline to stick with it long enough to know what's going to work for the organization and the way for you to ebb and flow and adapt.
Chart your own course by taking advantage of the Fast Track Your Business program. A vast set of resources and exclusive access to Jess. Visit fasttrackyourbusinesstoday.com. Your preparedness and the right perspective is absolutely necessary when you find yourself somewhere uncharted. Special thanks to the Scott Treatment for technical production.